This screen gives a general overview of what goes into each character currently. It looks like he's smart and social, but also can be a bit private. This is a person's journal, where every character logs every thought, decision, fear, event, belief, etc. that they feel into a journal. We can see many thoughts, even in just the few hours we let it play out. They are all color-coded by rarity and thought type. While truly rare thoughts have much more value, all of these thoughts can have some value to the crafty songwriter. So going back to about 9 o'clock yesterday morning, we can see some of the daily events that affected Jim. Here's one, for example, where a light bulb went out in his apartment. If a character is thinking something, it means it did have an effect on their mood. But right after that, he realized it was time to head out to the bar where he works. Once he arrives, notice that he has a few thoughts about his surroundings. Again, all their feelings as to what's going on around them are based off of their personality and their current mood. So when a character notices a place is empty and it disappoints them, you can be sure they're feeling a need to be social. Around 10:50, Jim has the thought that the day feels like it's never going to end. This could be a sign of laziness, a greater character issue, or maybe he's just having a slow day. The only way to really know is to spend time building a relationship with the character and then seeing the context and pattern of specific thoughts. Here's something work-related. It looks like a customer left him a good tip, which affects his mood, and it makes him think life is pretty sweet sometimes. Eventually, he starts to get hungry, which causes him to make a plan based off of a health-determined obligation, and from that he chooses to eat at the bistro, which isn't a random choice, but actually based off of his preferences. But back in the real world, at work, again he's complaining about the day dragging, and then a customer yelled at him, so a pattern may be forming that he's either not a very driven person, maybe not real responsible, and this actually may explain why he doesn't have an actual long-term goal. But jumping ahead to 5, as you could imagine, he's really happy to be done with work, and then he heads out to the bistro, just like he planned out back when he felt hungry during work. So he has his dinner and finishes up eating around 7 p.m., and then he thinks about socializing or meeting up with a friend. This here demonstrates the behavior system at work. This character has no pressing obligation, no long-term goal, it's not near his bedtime, he's not hungry, etc. So he's going to choose what he feels like doing most at the moment, which happens to be a hobby, and specifically socializing. Seems he found his friend Tom Lynch is free to meet up. So Jim spent the night socializing a bit, then heading home and reading, and eventually calling it a night. Characters don't have set times to sleep or eat, but rather they have general schedules and times that they expect to do things. But they can also always be swayed to do something else if they have good reason to. So finally, after a good night's sleep, Jim once again heads out to his favorite place, the bistro, which is now apparently crowded. And then once he's full, with no other plans, now he decides to head back home and read for a bit, which takes us to the moment where we first started. Then, we're going to take a look at a character named Mary Black. The reason we're going to take a look at her is that she actually has a long-term goal, and hers is to fall in love. She's motivated by companionship and romance, so her decision-making will factor that in based off of how important it is to her from her personality. So looking at a basic summary of her, she is someone who is very smart, social, and extroverted. So my guess is we'll see her trying to find ways to meet her crush. Jumping back a bit in time, we can see that she often goes to the museum, which makes sense, as we saw, given her penchant for cultural activities. But what I'm most interested in at this moment is how she came to be crushing on Cormac. So I can see here at 10 p.m. she decides to go to bed, and when she's laying in bed at midnight, she realizes she has a crush on him. Next, let's see if we can find where she first had thoughts about Cormac. At 3:35 on Friday, Cormac walked into where she was. Her first thought is that she thinks he is in her league looks-wise. She says she thinks he looks a bit wild and that she finds that hot. Then, she says it doesn't hurt to consider dating him, and then she says her heart is racing for some reason. Here we go. She is now aware that she has a crush on him. So now, let's see where she moves from a feeling to actually taking action in her life to make her desire a reality. So on Sunday morning, we see here that she makes plans to meet up with Melanie Crane, who must be a friend of a friend. Let's take a look at the next two thoughts she has. First, she notes she is excited to meet on the weekend. This is not random. She thinks that because that truly is her preferred time to meet with people. And if Mary didn't get her preferred time, you most likely would see a bit of an unhappy thought that, as well, could change her feelings a bit towards Melanie. Then, she says she's glad they are meeting in person because she believes this is a conversation which requires a face-to-face meeting. Seeing as she got two things she wanted, it may very well be that Mary dominated negotiations over Melanie. And if you looked at Melanie's journal, you may see a very different side of the coin if those weren't her preferences. She notes that she's feeling a bit down, so she orders a drink while she's chatting about Cormac. Then she starts getting a little antsy and she wants to leave. However, the drink she ordered gets her a bit buzzed, and then she wants to start to share her feelings a bit and open up, just like her profile said she would. But notice here in the red, she seems to notice that Melanie is a bit uncomfortable. Scrolling down a bit, it seems she was right about what she noticed about Melanie's mood because she left thinking the time spent wasn't worth it, meaning she didn't get what she wanted. Let's take a look at Jackie Simpson here. She's very smart, social, charming, trendy, hip, and as well, a pretty good musician. Finally, she has a long-term goal of being a rock star, so it sounds like she'd be a perfect choice to lead a band. First, let's look at her initial preferences. She doesn't like songwriting, but she does love performing, which makes it sound like she could be a great live performer and possibly an inspirational leader. But she may need to pair with a good songwriter, since that doesn't seem to be one of her strengths. Notice at 8:30 a.m., when we started the game Universe, the first thing she decides to do, since she doesn't have any obligations, and she is driven to work towards her long-term goal, is that she went to the music shop to find other musicians to join a band. It looks like she left a band notice there after arriving around 8:55 a.m. If we look at what happens after that then, other musicians come to the store and actually accepted her offer. So she announces she's officially in a band called the To-Dos with Imogen Cortez and Will Brown. Since she's a band leader, she realizes that she needs to get a hold of the band and figure out their next move. This is all done with real conversations behind the scenes. She's happy that the majority band vote was the same as her, which happens to be that the band votes that they need to rehearse more for the time being. She's especially pleased because she sees herself as the leader and the one determining direction. So let's find one of Jackie's bandmates, Will Brown. He's intelligent, but notice one of his traits is that he's a good songwriter, which should complement Jackie since that wasn't one of her strengths. It says as well that he is withdrawn unless he knows someone, so if he doesn't feel connected to his other bandmates, there could be issues. Just like Jackie, once the game started, he was driven to head to the music store to find a band, and once there, he joined up with the To-Dos. Then at midnight on Friday, we see that he shows up at practice just like we saw with Jackie. However, look at his thoughts. He thinks that the band should be more aggressive and show focus on getting a show booked instead of practice. Because of that, the thought crosses his mind that Jackie may not be the best person to lead the band. Sunday morning then, he has the thought that he is playing the waiting game for the next move with the band. Here we see he is stressed out about reaching his goals, especially because he feels he is meant for great things. As well, he's reading and he has the thought that he wishes the band would take the next step again, possibly even motivated by the book that he's reading that he's finding inspirational. Will could end up either pushing the band to be better, or if the other personalities in the band have issue with this, could cause the band to break up. And if you realize this and wanted Will's songwriting talents in your band, well, maybe there are things you can do to influence him.